At a couple minutes past the hour, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We are Miller and Moulton, and whether you're taking us in on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming us at millerandmoulton.com, or watching us live on the Miller and Moulton Twitch.tv channel, we are very thankful for all of it. Pat Kirwan is kind enough to join us once again, and he does so courtesy of Pinchers from Tampa to Key West and many points in between. Pinchers, because you can't fake fresh. Are you in the Sunshine State, my friend?
I am in the sun. Well, you'll hear the Osprey in a few minutes. He loves coming on this show. So, yes, I am.
Pat, I will say, if you can make it out for 9, the greens are very fast. I didn't bother to take a picture on Sunday because my phone had died by the time I got to the tee in front of your place.
I was out there yesterday, and I found 2 golf balls, and both of them said MM on them.
They would have been mine. And Pat, you're not supposed to go in those preserve areas. The sign clearly says you're not supposed to walk where I hit those.
I just followed the footprints. That's all.
Well, no one really followed the footprints trading players yesterday. It was a trade deadline from years gone past. As active as we've been the last couple of years, not very active yesterday. Why?
Because I think, we had a steady flow of trades and maneuvers for the last week or two. And I think early on, the compensation that was posted in some of those deals was limited, to say the least. And I think people that had players were not going to accept the kind of low ball stuff. Even Ngakwe's deal, which says they advertise as a 3, we all know if they don't sign Ngakwe back next year, they'll get third round compensatory. So most of them were low compensation, and I think a lot of guys are not going to go give. And I loved what I heard. Let's see, who was? Oh, Fuller. Oh, they get a second or third. They were never getting a second or third for Will Fuller, not with that injury history. So I think compensation had something to do with it. But now we see some of the cuts, like Vic Beasley and Jonathan Joseph. So what does that tell you? They were on the market. No one wanted them. That's the other part of it. You know, you're trying to dump a big contract. That's a problem. And a lot of GMs are worried about 2021. So if you're going to go trade for a guy with years left on his contract and it's got a big number in 2021 when you're going to be cutting guys and regrouping completely, I think that was another factor in it.
All right, Pat, you know where I'm going to go next. This is a year-to-year league, more so even than any of the other major sports leagues, I could argue, because of the injury factor. You just never know. Your season can be derailed in a play. And so if you think you've got a real shot, I mean, would I be wrong if I'm in the back of the room going, hey, come on, we got to make a move here? I mean, like if you're Green Bay, you're good. You're good. You don't seemingly have anything for Seattle, Tampa, if you know what I mean. Just like you didn't have anything for San Francisco last year. I mean, when the head coach for the first time is kind of publicly saying, hey, I could use a little help here. I mean, come on, their quarterback's 36, Pat. I mean, I get next year in the cap, but what about this year?
No, you are full of emotion today. I think that it's a very good argument, and I would have been one of those guys looking if I was in Green Bay. But you know what puzzles me about them? So what did we hear? They were looking for Will Fuller, a receiver. Forget that. You need a run-stuffing defensive tackle. I would have been harassing the Bengals for Geno Atkins and get another guy who can play and help you inside. That's their problem. Their receivers are good enough for them to score points. Can they stop anyone's run game? The Dalvin Cook experience says no, they can't. And so even bad teams are going to run right at these guys. If you do a film study getting ready to play them, do you really think you're going to come up with any other conclusion than to run the ball right at Green Bay? So San Francisco, they're a great example. Their quarterback's done, tight ends out. Coleman, who knows if he's playing, but they don't even have a choice. They have to run the ball. And you know what? That's the best game plan. And Shanahan, Kyle, he loves running the ball. So even San Francisco, who I don't think can win that game, are going to be doing what they should be doing and running the ball right at these guys. So you're right. There's a deficiency. But did you hear them at all, David, talking about run stuffer?
No.
Isn't that the number one problem?
And well, and it was last year. It's why they had no answer for San Francisco. San Francisco just lined up and shoved it right up them.
Yeah. So I found it amusing that the only thing the public, and that's us included, were hearing were receiver. Forget that. Now, getting someone to give you a defensive tackle. Well, let's use Tampa Bay, right? So they're one of those teams you described. They know they can get there. They believe they're going to get there. The second they lose the big tackle, Vita Vea, what do? They get McClendon. And it didn't even cost that much.
Nope.
Why didn't Green Bay get it, McClendon?
I don't know. I mean, as soon
Matt,
as
I'm so with you because David, think about what you were harping on for 5 days with Tampa. Go get some depth at offensive line. You don't have to be a great player. Find a swing tackle, and that's where and I guess Pat, take us inside the front office because you've been there and I know they didn't trade as much when you were in the front office, but to what you're just talking about. Hey, we can sit here and go all day about receivers and things of that nature, but there are a lot of teams that, whether it's at the point of attack on either side of the football, could use help to get to the finish line. Good teams that could use help. How difficult is it to pry a lineman, a defensive lineman, a swing tackle away from whether it's a Cincinnati or a Minnesota, someone that's out of it? Do you have to overpay? How do these things work? And why didn't we get those yesterday?
Yeah, I've been around a lot of trades in both directions, convincing someone to trade spots with us in the draft and picking up a player, Johnny Johnson, to do it, going the other way and getting rid of players. Now, the big fear, that's why these guys are real careful. You don't want names leaked out there of how you have on the trade block, because if you don't pull off the trade and you don't intend to cut him, now you got a real problem in your locker room. He knows you tried to shop him around. So it's deny on that front. I think getting an O-lineman this year is brutally hard. We've all seen how many injuries in the offensive line, and the COVID phenomenon with linemen is ridiculous. Ask the Raiders. Now you can go ask a number of teams. So that you look at the Cowboys issues in the line, the Eagles issues in the line, now the Ravens issues in the line. So I don't know that there are going to be any swing tackles out there, because the swing tackles are already starting all over the league, and we're seeing practice squad guys start. But I think a couple of teams blew it when Quentin Spain was cut. Quentin Spain gets cut. He's walking around for a day and a half, and the Bengals sign him. So do you think Quentin Spain was going to Cincinnati if someone else big time called him?
Absolutely not.
So he goes to Cincinnati. What's the first 3 days after he gets there? He's starting and playing the whole game. How many teams could he use? And I'm not saying Quentin is a superstar, but he was a 16-game starter and nothing. Now, Pete Carroll knows he needs a defensive pass rusher. He gets Carlos Dunlap, didn't have to pay that much. He gave them a center that didn't even play it down. He had 0 snaps this year. He was the backup Finney out of the Steelers. He gave him that in a late pick. But there weren't that many offensive linemen for sale. But when I saw Spain get cut, I go, you got to jump all over this guy. And only the Bengals jumped up. Crazy.
He's Pat Kirwan. You can hear him weekday afternoons on NFL radio. It's Moving the Chains is the name of the show. He's also a big part of the CBS NFL Today show. And he joins us twice a week, courtesy of Pinchers, from Tampa to Key West and many points in between. Pinchers, because you can't fake fresh. What do you think of this trial balloon? That's how I take it. Maybe it's more real than that was thrown out there earlier in the week about, if we have to lose a week's worth of games to COVID here in the second half of the season, we may do what baseball did. We may just increase our playoffs and we'll have 8 teams from each conference. Nobody gets a bye. Does this have legs, or is this a molten idea in the back of the room?
No, I think it has some legs, but I think that, look, they've already admitted basically that before they got to that, they'd go to week 18. And I think the asterisk is, if we can't cover all the, makeup games, which of course they couldn't if one team had to make up 2 games, that would blow up at week 18. Can't do them both. You play Saturday and Sunday this week. No, that's not happening. I personally think that before I'd go to giving away the number one seeds bye and throwing an extra team. Like, we're already at 14, so going to 16 is no earth-shattering maneuver. But going to 16 takes away the bye for the Steelers. You think that's fair? I don't know. And I don't think that would stop them from doing it. But I personally think I would look to have – we know that there's division games in the last week or two. Everyone's got one the last week, and most of them have it for 2 weeks. So before we get to that, just back it up to like week 15 and week 14, and maybe you drop the interconference game. If you've got a game across conference, drop that game, and now we have a 15-game schedule. I think that's a better idea, personally, that everyone plays 15. Now, I haven't studied the schedule enough to know how to drop them all, but I would be inclined to look at doing that. And, David, you are our GM on the show now. Why don't you, when you're on that plane going 3,000 miles, why don't you look and see if we could all drop one crossover game?
Wow.
With a better idea than this one.
Man, that's going to be a hell of a project. I'm going to end up talking to the guy next to me going, I didn't realize, but if we drop all the week 13 games, he's going to look at me and go, can I switch seats?
Exactly. There's no doubt. And, it's funny, Pat, that you say this because, we talk NFL with you, but when the Big Ten got going, I'm like, man, they got to play all their division games first and do their crossovers next, because if they cancel games, they're going to be in a problem. And here we are now, Wisconsin, Purdue's canceled, and they won't play one another, and it could end up messing up who wins one side. So it's something I thought they should have thought about these things well ahead, and it would have been easier to anticipate if you had a week 13, 14 crossover week that you just dump that for makeup games. But that's it's a lot easier to do it in hindsight. Pat, just who were you more impressed with last week winning? The Colts going into Detroit and Phillip Rivers throwing the ball to anybody he wanted to, or the Raiders going into Cleveland? Because I thought they were both very big wins for both teams.
Yeah, and making it tough to answer because there's a lot of merit to both places. I'm probably more inclined, and I have to think that Carr, to me, is playing pretty good. The Colt win, I talked to Naheem Hines yesterday for a while. I think the Colt win, maybe I'll say Colts for this reason, Mark, because I think right now, I'll ask you in reverse to answer my own question. I think the Colts might be more dangerous. And beating Detroit isn't as good as beating Cleveland, but my sense is this week, that Colt game with Baltimore, and I want to talk about that all you want on Friday, and that's where I think the Colts could be more dangerous. Now, maybe you guys say, well, I think the Raiders are more dangerous, but my sense is that the Colts, because Phillip is really playing within himself and doing a good job, and that defense, once Leonard got back, he was in the backfield making plays. So maybe I'll say in Indy just because of that.
By the way, just quickly with Hines, where did the touchdown jump come from? Was he a gymnast at some point? Because, damn it, that was impressive.
Yeah. Did you see all the guys holding up the numbers? 9, 10, 8. Guys grading that. And I did ask him, though, as the coach asked you to stop doing it. You worry about stuff like that.
Yeah.
But one of them, he didn't have a perfect landing.
Right.
He just laughed when I asked him that. I guess no one's asked him to stop.
Pat, very quickly, quick research and development. Week 14, there's only 3 division games. Okay, that looks like the best week if we had to scrap a week and rework the schedule.
I don't really want to scrap it. I want to split it up in 2 weeks so the networks have games on both weekends. I don't want a blank weekend.
Well, that's the other side of it, too. It's a good point, Pat. And by the way, to answer your question, I think the Colts win was bigger. I think the Raiders might have earned a playoff spot. But based on the Colts coming up with games with the Ravens, the Packers, and 2 with the Titans, it was, to me, the season for the Indianapolis Colts. If they didn't win that game, I thought they put themselves in a tremendous hole. So I thought coming out, playing the way they did, I'm with you. I think the Raiders earned a playoff spot, Pat, but I think the Colts saved their season with that win.
I do, and I'm very anxious to watch them play this week on a lot of levels. The first instinct I have is that Baltimore, can you recover from playing the Steelers? We on this show, we tracked Seattle the year they won the Super Bowl. We tracked what happened to the teams they played that year, the week after they played Seattle? And most of them, I thought, lost. So here's Baltimore. They laid it on the line. They could have won that game, but it was a bloodbath, and they had carnage. They had injuries, and now they got COVID problems. They have 5 linebackers now. Most of them, I think, will get back to the game, but between losing the 2 offensive linemen, especially Stanley, playing the Steelers in a bloodbath, and then the COVID attack that they're under, I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to say who could win that game. And plus, we got the Lamar issues of, everyone wants to paint a picture. Lamar can't beat great teams, but can he beat a good team when the thing is a little wounded as they are right now?
Well, what would concern you more? And I understand when you win, it's easy to be less concerned, but the Steelers gave up like 260 plus yards rushing. But then again, Lamar still can't when it's 3rd and 5 and it's a big spot and we need to complete an 8-yard pass somewhere. He and they can't seem to do it. Which would concern you more going forward?
I'm more concerned about Lamar because Lamar can't beat the great teams with just magic. He's got to eventually throw for 250. He doesn't have to throw for 300 every week, but 250 from the pocket and read coverage and go to the right guy. That first interception, I mean, where was he throwing the ball? Spillane is where he was throwing the ball, and touchdown the other way. So you can say, you meaning all of us, anything you want about how that game went, but the reality was they had 4 turnovers, that being Baltimore. 2 interceptions led directly to 14 points. One was a score by defense, and the other one was a short series and a score. The rest of it didn't matter. We can argue anything we want about Lamar. They had 4 turnovers, and 2 led to 14 points, and ultimately that was the difference in the game. So that I think Pittsburgh will clean up their stuff. Sometimes 2 things about their run defense the other day. Number one, sometimes you decide what to give up in order to stop someone or slow them down. And they were not going to give Lamar any big plays. So the series that puzzled me, and if I was Baltimore, I'd be using it more. In the 4th quarter with 7 minutes and 29 seconds, they ran a 10-run, no passes series. And their thought of passing was a quarterback draw, and it wasn't really a pass. But they ran that speed option, and that thing accumulated 67 yards in 10 plays, and I didn't think Pittsburgh had a chance of stopping that thing. So I'd say more of that if I'm Baltimore, because not everyone can do that. When you have Lamar, or maybe Kyler Murray, you could do it, but that's a series that I don't think they play to enough, and they may need to do it, especially now. Do you think you want Lamar trying to sit in the pocket when there's no left tackle? I don't think so. So might see more option from them.
Pat, when you back to the Raiders.
Mark, hold on one second, Mark. I guarantee you David's looking at week 13 right now.
No, he's not, because we're zoomed. I can see him. One of these days we'll get you on this method so people can see as well. But Pat, back to the Raiders. You talked about Carr. Let's take it from the Browns standpoint. I know there was a lot of wind that day. I know it was the first game without Odell Beckham, and everybody thought that was going to be better for Baker Mayfield. But the offense was ineffective. Hunt couldn't run the ball at all. I thought they would be able to do that. What does this game mean from Cleveland's standpoint? They're still going to be a playoff team, Pat. They play the Jets, the Jags, and the Giants on the road. I don't see how they don't get in as a wild card. But that doesn't mean they're a good football team yet.
No, it doesn't. But they're going to, in my opinion, I share yours, is that they'll get to 9 or 10 wins, and they'll get in. And I'm not talking about the 8-team format, the 7-team format. They'll get in, and they'll lose in the opening round. And what will we say? Kevin Stefanski has done a hell of a job in his first year trying to build the Cleveland Browns. It's one step at a time. It's one thing if you take over a team and you got a 35-year-old quarterback and you squeeze out, the last playoff spot, and your team needs to be rebuilt. But he's doing this with a lot of youngsters. And so I think that's all that. If I said to you, Mark, hey, I'll guarantee you Cleveland makes the playoffs this year and they'll get bumped out in the first round, would you have taken that off the history of the Browns?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they will achieve more than their first goal. Their first goal, I guarantee, was to have a winning record. If that winning record, which is what it's going to be, in my opinion, barring a complete collapse, leads And they're doing it without Chubb, who, by the way, I thought is their best player by far. If it leads to a playoff game, so what if they lose it? They have taken a major step, and that's all we can say that Kevin Stefanski did. And above and beyond that, Kevin's just brought stability to the place. He's like a real coach now. We got someone that they don't ever want to fire for the least 3 years before we.
Browns would be the final playoff team in the AFC right now, with the Raiders and Dolphins half a game back. Pat, if you're the Niners, can you take a big picture look? I mean, you were 10 minutes away from winning a Super Bowl, and now here you are. It's all gone wrong, and you may not have a quarterback after all. I mean, if you're the Niners, can you just write this year off as bad stuff happened and we're going to get healthy and go back at it next year? Or do you have to maybe make a change at the most important position?
Well, that doesn't involve this year, because it doesn't appear that Garoppolo is going to play anymore this year. And if he gets back at the end of the year and they're mathematically eliminated, why would you play him? So now we get the old popular list of all of Jimmy Garoppolo's injuries, even the runny nose in first grade's on the list. So, the contract says you can get out of it.
Right.
But it also says I can keep him in case I can't get the guy I want. So they got options here, and they can hold on to Jimmy until, let's say, Sam Darnold comes free. I would think Sam Darnold would be a hell of a fit for them. And he hasn't played great yet, but Kyle Shanahan knows what he's looking for all the time. He has his version of what a quarterback has to be, and I think Sam Darnold, as a small example, fits the bill. So let's say they get a chance to get Sam Darnold off his rookie contract. Now you have Garoppolo, and you could release him. Maybe you'd call Belichick and say you want your guy back. So there's a lot of ways that it could go, but you don't have to rush, and you're in the driver's seat. You're protected if you have to go with Jimmy again because you couldn't get anybody. And the draft may not set up for them very well. So I think they have some options, and I think they're going to investigate those options. I think that's the best answer I got, David.
Pat, my last question for you is about the Bucs. I mean, it was ugly, but talk to a Tampa Bay fan right now. I don't think you have to talk them off the ledge. They won, but is this the sign of maturity? This is a game that Jameis Winston wouldn't have won. I'm not trying to compare the two, but to me, this is just simple. You've said it for the longest time. You had to do your power poll yesterday. I didn't even bother to ask you about it, but power polls don't matter in the NFL. You laugh about it, you have to do it, so you do it. All that matters is the number in the W column, and Tampa Bay took care of business.
Yeah, they did. I love when people say, and it's so much fun to say because you can't prove it. Oh, they were looking past the Giants because they have the Saints next week. Well, that's a Bucs fan who didn't want to see any negativity. That's just the guy who wants to be able to go to sleep thinking that. Good. It's like a sleeping pill for him. I don't know that it's all of that, but here comes Antonio Brown. And now when they're at full strength, and if you just put that on the field, oof, and look at that whole matchup stuff, and if everyone's healthy, receivers, I'm putting Antonio in the slot, and I guarantee Tom's worked out with him a dozen times, somewhere along the line since last year.
Considering they're living together, I would agree with you, Pat.
Yeah, and he'll be in great shape. The guy's a workout nut. He'll be on good behavior in a merit badge or two at the end of the year, but then you got a matchup reality, and that defense is really pretty good. And so you got a defense, and they'll score faster. And as soon as they score faster, the opponents are going to be one-dimensional throwing teams. And here comes JPP and Shaq and the rest of these guys. So I think that they're going to be a tough out now. No, an injury or two. But Gronk looks like he's in shape now. Do you guys feel like Gronk looks more sudden in the last week or two?
Yeah, it looks like he found
that ladder. He loves running that little ladder route, the out and up. Now it looks good. It looks now like it did in the Rams Super Bowl when he caught
Yes.
the biggest play of the game.
Yeah, he found his legs in the Green Bay game, and also it's pretty clear that Brady went to Arians and said, "Can we start running a couple of the plays him and I used to run in New England, because they're running those a lot now." And sure enough, he's scoring a touchdown a game.
Yeah, because you can't. If you're the safety that's on him and he runs the out part, what are you doing? Playing off? They'll just throw the out. He won't convert. As soon as that safety, he feels the safety on the shoulder, he turns and goes upfield, and now the ball's laid out perfectly for him. So they got that. They obviously got the big receivers on the outside, and then they're going to get AB, and they still can. If this is the other part of this thing, if they get ahead of you, they got a 4-minute drill with Leonard Fournette now. And so they got a lot of things going for them that are going to be hard to stop. And I don't think the Saints this week are at full strength, right? We'll see.
They may get their receivers back, though, which will help. They're shorthanded elsewhere, but I think they get their receivers back. Pat, we could talk all day. We'll do this again Friday.
Yes, sir. Have a good call yourself and enjoy your trip. And by the time you get back, Mark and I want the 15-game schedule.
Thanks, Pat.
Can't believe I have homework. Man, it's been a long time since I had homework.
I love it. You know, though, David, look at the smile on your face. This is not an algebra assignment. If teachers would have given you assignments like this, you would have been saying, give me more homework.
Man, I'm going to be asking the guy next to me. So would you bump the Arizona? No,